I want to share two links that I think provide great information on the humidity, heat, and light factors to keep in mind for storing and preserving your collectibles, specifically your paper collectibles such as trading cards and comic books. I already did a video on a hygrometer, which is a device you can use to measure temperature and humidity. And I wanted to give a little bit more in depth about these factors that I mentioned in that video. The two websites that I'm recommending with this information are the American Museum of Natural History, Preserving Personal Books and Papers, and a Sparkle City Comics article on how to store comic books. I'll put links to these websites in the description below. Together, these two websites provide a comprehensive guide to all of the temperature and humidity ranges you need to keep in mind for the area in which you are storing your collectibles, as well as talking about factors to keep in mind with light and some other tips for storage. So let's get through this. I'm not going to read this whole article to you, but I'm just going to point out some of the key highlights. So on the American Museum of Natural History's page, first let's talk about humidity. You want to avoid high humidity. Again, you can use a hygrometer to know what the humidity is in your storage area, as well as the temperature. They recommend keeping your humidity between 40 and 45%. And if you can't keep it within those numbers, at least try to stay below 65% relative humidity, especially if it is warm. At this humidity level, mold can develop, and it can also encourage insect infestations. You also do not want to store them against outside walls or damp floors where they might be exposed to water. Another good idea is to keep them away from basements and garages. These tend to not have great climate control and can be wet or have other problems associated with them. Now, as for temperature, you want to be careful to especially avoid extreme heat, especially in attics and garages that do not have air conditioning during the summer months, as the high temperatures can damage books and paper. So paper is very sensitive to high amounts of heat. Lastly, light. Be very careful with natural sunlight and also artificial lighting. They specify fluorescent light here, but any amount of artificial lighting, though it's not as bad as UV light, can still damage paper over the long term. So you don't want to leave something out in front of a bright light for long periods of time. Even indoors without any direct sunlight coming through the windows, you want to keep a dark environment for your paper collectibles. On the Sparkle City Comics How to Store Comic Books page, you get a few additional details. For one, you get a range of about 50 to 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, on hot summer days in the room where I keep my cards and comics, it can creep above 70. The most I've ever seen was 75 degrees during a heat wave, and I did get a portable air conditioning unit in case that were to happen again. And on a lot of hot days, I'm still going to see maybe 71, 72, depending. But in general, most people can keep 68 degrees constant throughout the year using a central air conditioning system and heating system. So try to stay within this range, but it's not the end of the world if you go a little bit over 70 degrees. And they also add that getting too cold can risk drying the paper out. Okay. Now, the humidity range is a little bit different here. The American Museum of Natural History recommended 40 to 45%. And here you have a little bit more of a liberal range of 40 to 60%, although I would try to keep it lower than higher. Above 50%, mold can grow, so you want to keep that in mind, and don't panic if you have high humidity one day and it gets up to 60%. But I would recommend if you're going to consistently have high humidity, that you might want to invest in a dehumidifier unit for that room. Another really good point to keep in mind is that it's not only good to stay within these ranges, but you want to stay consistent with whatever number you are actually at. So you don't want too much fluctuation. It says here you can store your books away from windows and doors because those areas tend to have more fluctuating humidity. And additionally, having a fan running in your room can help to even out changes in temperature or humidity. I thought this was really interesting because fans do not actually lower the temperature in your room. So if you're trying to get it cooler, fans actually will not help do that. They do make you feel cooler because you don't need to perspire as much to stay cool when you have a fan blowing on you. But for the room temperature itself, it will not decrease simply because a fan is blowing. However, it is helpful to have a fan to even out any fluctuations in temperature or humidity. So that could be really helpful. I hope these tips were helpful for you. Again, you can find the links to this in the description below, where you can find this information and other tips. If you need to know what the temperature and humidity levels are where you are storing your collectibles, buy a hygrometer. I do have another video talking about a hygrometer and how to get those. You can also purchase a dehumidifier if your humidity is too high. Keep in mind that a dehumidifier can heat up the temperature in your room, so you need to balance a lot of factors when considering what is the optimal storage area and devices that you will need for preserving your collectibles for the long term. How do you preserve your collectibles? Do you have any particular obstacles or hazards, such as high humidity levels or lots of sunlight coming into your house that you need to be wary of? What special precautions do you take to ensure that no damage is caused to your collectibles through temperature, humidity, or light? Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss future videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.